Reflecting on the years that led me to this point, I can't help but recall when our partnership started. We encountered each other in college, both brimming with aspirations, and immediately felt a connection. Kay was everything I desired: beautiful, intelligent, and vibrant. We were inseparable, and I genuinely believed she was my soulmate. Our bond intensified swiftly, and it seemed we were meant for a lifetime of joy. However, as time advanced, the harsh realities of life replaced the carefree days of our youth. The woman I once cherished began to seem like a stranger. Our lives were overwhelmed with parenting, career demands, and family dynamics. The passion that once shone brightly started to wane, and I found myself in a marriage far from the fairy tale I had envisioned. Our marriage hit a breaking point. Intimacy dwindled to a rare occurrence, maybe once a month, if my wife wasn't resentful. In the early days, our frequent intimate moments, 4 or 5 times a week, were fueled by her passion and vigor, elements that initially attracted me. But now, she had changed, becoming distant and disinterested in intimacy, almost as if she loathed it. Kay, along with her younger sisters Katie and Kathy, were always known for their spirited and lively nature, especially in private moments. I was overjoyed when Kay chose me. We married 12 years ago after she became pregnant in college. We were both seniors and in love, planning on marriage regardless. Our daughter Sally was born 5 months post-wedding, followed by our son Kevin a year and a half later. Both children are doted on by their mother, her sisters, and her parents, who have always disapproved of me since I couldn't provide the luxuries they desired for Kay. Her parents, who never worked a day in their lives, survive on dwindling inheritances, a fact only I know because I checked the property records years ago. Kay's sisters each have 2 children. Katie is married to Ron, who operates 5 dry cleaning stores for his father, while Kathy is married to Mark, who inherited a house and some money from his grandparents. Mark owns a marketing firm, though I've never seen him actually work. Like Kay, they are the life of the party but falter in real work scenarios. 2 years ago, I sat in my home office, frustrated after having to resort to a solitary shower that morning, and re-evaluated my life. My existence felt bleak: a disinterested spouse who doesn't work, children who disregard me and mimic their mother, a job I despise where we're treated poorly, a house near her parents in a region where it snows for 4 months. I've always disliked the cold since I was raised in the South. I drive a 10-year-old car that was initially Kay's until she crashed it, traded in my vehicle, and bought herself a new one because she couldn't wait for repairs. I'm barred from driving the new car without enduring verbal abuse. We're burdened with payments for an oversized house to be near her family, a frail dog requiring medication, a maid twice a week since housework exhausts her too much for intimacy. 10 years ago, a brief increase in intimacy lasted only 2 months, but the maid service continues. We finance a clubhouse and spa membership for her socializing needs with her friends and sisters. I don't golf and have never visited the spa. We also cover expenses for new clothes and hairstyling due to her social commitments, as well as tennis lessons for her and the kids, despite their lack of skill and interest. The children would indulge incessantly if allowed. We take 3 annual vacations: 1 winter trip with her family for skiing, which I avoid due to a bad knee, a spring trip to a major city for shopping, and a summer beach vacation to which I am not invited. Christmas and Thanksgiving are invariably spent at her family's residences. My parents reside in a modest bungalow by the beach in the south, but their home is too cramped to host my family, which includes my wife, 2 children, father-in-law, mother-in-law, 2 sisters-in-law, 2 nephews, 2 nieces, and 2 brothers-in-law, all of whom ridicule me for not having a family inheritance that makes life easier. I work extensive hours, yet my wife and kids fail to acknowledge the effort I put in to ensure their comfort. Moreover, my wife is unfaithful. She is a deceitful liar. This wasn't a discovery by chance. A few months before reassessing my life, I sought to understand why Kay seemed so uninterested in intimacy. She either lost interest or found it elsewhere, prompting me to investigate. In our digital era, acquiring spyware, recorders, cameras, and monitoring software is straightforward. I began by installing a recorder in her car, linked to the battery for continuous power, and set up a Bluetooth station in the garage to auto-download the recordings to my home PC. I then discreetly placed cameras in every room of our house, excluding the children's rooms, and covered external areas like the patio, pool, and garage, all streaming directly to my computer. Early on, I deciphered Kay's phone code, which she had kept secret. At around 3 a.m., I accessed her phone and installed monitoring software that enabled me to hear all her calls and read every text. Additionally, I upgraded our home internet to business class to facilitate remote access to my home PC from my phone. 2 weeks later, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my office listening to a recording from her car. "I overheard Kay arranging a meeting. Can you meet this Thursday at my place? 10 works for me. I can't wait to ride you hard." "Me too, babe." Love you. This revelation was devastating. I turned off my computer and took the dog for a walk, overwhelmed with anger. Although prepared for the worst, hearing it was still a shock. However, I realized I was not sad, just furious. The next day, I confronted the harsh reality: a disloyal wife and a life filled with one-sided commitments. I needed to escape this nightmare. First, I had to identify the man and collect solid evidence. Upon further investigation, I found no significant conversations on Kay's primary phone. She must have been using another. Working late one night, I searched her car and discovered a hidden phone in the front console's air vent, secured with Velcro. I used the same code as her primary phone, installed the monitoring software, and restored everything to its original state. Then, I reviewed the recovered messages. The texts, spanning 2 years, were shocking. They revealed that Kay and her sisters compared their lovers' performances and even discussed swapping partners. My wife's latest affair was with our daughter's soccer coach. Katie was involved with a grocery store clerk, but Kay and Kathy warned her against unmarried men. Their mother even imposed rules for their indiscretions. Kathy had relations with a mechanic who had been with all 3 sisters, and their mother had been with him first. Kay had also been involved with Ron and Mark, albeit sporadically, while her sisters urged her to manage them well. I knew I needed an exit strategy. The following week, I feigned ignorance while initiating arguments over household chores, causing her to lose her temper. I mentally noted to reignite these disputes periodically and moved into the guest room. A week later, I had a plan. I wanted out of the marriage, out of my job, all the money, no alimony, and, since she had corrupted them, I didn't want custody of the kids. I aimed to inflict long-lasting mental anguish on Kay and harm her family as much as possible. Ultimately, I sought to start anew and build a genuine family. I realized I had been naive. Neither Kay nor her family valued a hard-working, devoted husband. Her parents, sisters, and their spouses were toxic, narcissistic individuals focused solely on their desires. I began devising a plan to instigate divorces among her sisters and manipulate my in-laws to my advantage. It was time to take control. At Katie's house for dinner, I discreetly photographed several items, including 1 alarm clock, 2 wall clocks, and a smoke detector at Kathy's. I followed the same procedure with 2 alarm clocks, 2 wall clocks, and a doorbell cup at Mom's. I captured a picture of 1 alarm clock. A year ago, I had replaced all the smoke detectors at home with newer models, primarily to stop Kay from complaining. The toughest task was finding a matching doorbell cover, but eBay proved reliable. After installing cameras in each house, I hosted a pool party and invited everyone. While they were swimming, I borrowed their house keys and installed monitoring software on their phones, using the lock codes I knew from earlier recordings. During the party, I accidentally dropped a bag of ice. Katie snapped, "Are you completely useless?" "Go get more ice," I apologized and left. En route, I stopped by Mom's, Kathy's, and Katie's houses to make a few replacements. I installed wireless boxes in their attics and connected to their networks. I also copied their house keys, grabbed some ice, and headed back. When I returned, Kathy sarcastically remarked, "It took you long enough." I concocted a story about a flat tire, but no one expressed gratitude or sympathy. 2 days later, I had video evidence of Kathy with the mechanic. They rushed inside, leaving a trail of clothes from the front door to the bedroom. No foreplay, just straight to the action. Afterward, he said he needed to leave before his wife got suspicious. Kathy tried to persuade him for another round, but he declined, saying he needed to conserve energy for his wife. As he left, he entered his phone code in front of the camera, which I noted. The next Thursday, I sneaked in while they were busy and installed monitoring software on his phone, which lay on the living room floor. Things escalated from there. The next day, I discovered Katie's lover was none other than her uncle, and her aunt was complicit too. All 3 undressed, and the aunt, who looked great for her age, joined in. Watching it, I thought I'd rather be watching National Geographic. Later, I caught my wife in our bedroom with Cheryl, our neighbor's wife, a stunning redhead. They kissed throughout, and surprisingly, I found myself enjoying that video. Afterward, Cheryl showered and left, walking home visibly bowlegged. Then came the shocker. Ron and Mark entered Katie's bedroom and undressed. Realizing I never wanted to shake hands with them again, I reviewed footage from Katie's parents' house. I skipped most of it, not wanting to see them undressed, but I did catch Katie's uncle with her mum while her dad watched from a chair next to the bed. Afterward, her mum pulled out what looked like an industrial jackhammer and went to town. The noise could probably shake the whole house. It was easier than expected, but a lot weirder. I wondered if I could get Morgan Freeman to narrate these videos. You might be wondering if this video was obtained legally. Who cares? I never planned to bring this to court. My aim was to ensure no one would want this to end up in court. Before sharing any of the videos, I had to remove the recorders to prevent them from being traced back to me. Removing the cameras from their homes was easy enough. I hosted another pool party and again accidentally dropped a bag of ice. Katie teased. "Nice job," numbskull Katie added. "Does he even have any?" Kathy joked, "Aren't they in your purse?" They all snickered, and even my daughter Sally mumbled, "Mom, why is he always so embarrassing?" Ron suggested. "Ask for help with heavy stuff next time." Mark joked, "We can have one of the girls help you next time." My son Kevin sneered, "Man up, Dad." They all laughed, and Kate told me to go get more ice. Katie's parents chimed in, telling me to hurry because their drinks were getting warm. It was typical, but this was the first time all 9 of them mocked me simultaneously. I seized the opportunity to leave, retrieved the alarm clocks, and replaced them with new cameras, all within the time it took to fetch a new bag of ice. Initially, I sent the video of Kathy with the mechanic to her and Mark, then forwarded the video of Katie with her aunt and uncle to her and Ron, accompanied by a message: "You shouldn't mess with another woman's husband." Did everything explode? Not exactly. The sisters complained to their mother, who intervened with her typical for the sake of the children plea, asserting it was just a mistake and proclaiming her daughter's loyalty. However, the situation escalated when their mother confidentially told each son-in-law, "You're our favorite, and we plan to leave all our inheritance to you," and our daughter each believed he was the exclusive heir. To intensify the situation, I sent Ron and Mark their own compromising videos with a warning this would become public unless they filed for divorce on grounds of infidelity within a year. No household should endure staying united after such betrayals. As Ron and Mark griped about their wives without mentioning the infidelity, I nonchalantly mentioned that I thought the in-laws were financially destitute, hinting at a second mortgage, no property, no savings, and no social security benefits due to never having worked. This revelation was the last straw. Within a week, both filed for divorce using the same attorney. The in-laws were shattered upon discovering the true financial status of Ron and Mark. It turned out Ron was merely managing his father's dry cleaning business, residing in a house owned by his dad, presented as a wedding gift, with both cars also belonging to the company. Mark's situation was not much better. He had a small inheritance and a trust fund from his grandfather, which he believed were secure from the divorce. However, since these were the only sources of income for the household, they were divided in the divorce, leaving Mark with only 1/3 of the trust fund while Kathy received 2/3. Moreover, everyone believed Mark owned their house, but it was actually in his parents' name. He had claimed to have bought it from them upon their retirement, but they still held ownership. After the divorce, Mark's parents essentially disowned him, allowing him to stay in the house only under the condition that he remain out of their lives. Kathy attempted to persuade them to let her and the children stay, but my mother-in-law spoiled it by threatening to sue Mark's father if he didn't allow them to stay for free. He retorted that she could buy the house and gift it to her daughter, and then hung up. The house was listed for sale 2 days later. Mark had never owned a marketing firm. He was actually fired from his first job out of college for sexual misconduct. A week later, my mother-in-law was jailed with a restraining order after attacking the mechanic's wife, who she believed was behind the incriminating videos. During an altercation in a coffee shop, where my mother-in-law slapped her, the mechanic's wife, with her children in a stroller, retaliated, breaking my mother-in-law's nose and giving her 2 black eyes. The entire incident was captured on the coffee shop's cameras and a hidden camera in my mother-in-law's car. While waiting for the police, the mechanic's wife asked why she thought the videos were her doing. Despite her injuries, My mother-in-law sneeringly replied that her husband claimed she was inadequate in bed and questioned if she thought she could keep him to herself when they were willing to share. To support the mechanic's wife, I sent her the video of Kathy with the mechanic, along with pictures and texts proving his infidelity. The mechanic was divorced within 3 months. At a family gathering, Ron and Mark, both intoxicated, lamented to me about their divorces. Mark confessed he had married Kathy hoping her parents were wealthy, which he thought would reconcile him with his father. Now he was left with almost nothing, most of his trust fund having gone to his ex-wife. Ron disclosed that he had married Katie hoping to inherit his father's dry cleaning businesses, but instead he was merely managing a store that was losing money. Worse still, his father's new wife was pregnant, making Ron doubtful of any inheritance. It turned out the sisters were too preoccupied with marrying into wealth to realize their husbands were not as affluent as they had appeared. The gold diggers had been duped by their ex-husbands. Both daughters ended up moving back in with their parents, who were less than thrilled to have them and their children around. My mother-in-law even grumbled, "Do we really have to tolerate those two witches and their loser kids?" With the sisters divorced, my little hobby had begun to pay off. Life at home had improved slightly, and my wife even briefly acknowledged me as the primary breadwinner compared to her sister's ex-husbands, though they soon turned that into a joke. While my mother-in-law was recovering from nose surgery, I enjoyed a short break from her meddling. Her nose healed crooked and noticeably larger, which felt like a minor win for me. Meanwhile, my resentment towards my boss, John, who had become a greedy, self-absorbed fool as the company expanded, grew. Our bonuses had decreased from $116,000 to less than $20,000, and I was earning less each year due to inflation and rising costs. Since my surveillance hobby had proven effective, I extended it to John's office, his home, and his secretary Sasha's apartment. Rumors had circulated about their affair, and it wasn't challenging to confirm. I acquired a copy of Sasha's apartment key during a management meeting where I installed cameras and monitoring software with access to their phones. I obtained video proof of their weekly meetings at Sasha's apartment. Sasha and I had a good rapport at work, and unlike other men, I wasn't intimidated by John or romantically interested in Sasha. While most office women were standoffish towards her, Sasha dressed conservatively, often in long skirts that covered her legs, and she had a round face, leading me to wrongly assume she was overweight. However, videos from her apartment revealed she was quite fit, exercising regularly and dressing in oversized t-shirts to deflect undue attention. She also wore minimal makeup, which I admired. John, on the other hand, was quick to finish, so I didn't have to endure their physical interactions in the videos for long. After 4 weeks of surveillance, I quit my job. I had developed the company's software from the ground up and decided to design a sales module with predictive planning capabilities, anticipating that John would need my assistance to complete his ongoing projects. Coincidentally, one of the oldest sections of the code became corrupted, and the backups were mysteriously missing an innocent mistake by it. I began working from home, so my routine remained largely unchanged. 2 weeks later, John was desperate for my return. I negotiated a contract that doubled my previous hourly rate, which allowed me to quadruple my old salary with overtime. I rewrote the corrupted code from memory, improving it and integrating new features requested by the sales team. The other modules required modifications to work with the new one, but these enhancements made my sales module even more effective. Customers were pleased with the updates, and both John's software and my new company's software flourished. After 30 days, my contract was extended indefinitely. The following week, my wife received a letter from an attorney regarding a deceased relative. We met with the attorneys and discovered that her great-uncle, who had no immediate heirs, had left a trust fund providing $4,000 per month to a family member of good moral character. If the recipient had a child and named it after him or his late wife, the monthly amount would increase to $20,000. Since Kay's 2 sisters were disqualified due to their previous actions, the attorneys approached her. We signed the documents and received our first check. Kay was ecstatic and talked incessantly on the way home about discontinuing birth control and having another child to secure the larger payout. Once home, I told her we needed to talk. She was too elated to notice my serious tone at the kitchen table. I had to request that she stop texting. I confessed that I had quit my job a year ago and that things hadn't unfolded as planned. "What, and you're just now telling me?" she exclaimed. I revealed that I had started my own software company, which was operational but progressing slower than anticipated. Well, that doesn't matter now, she replied dismissively. We have plenty of money and more coming. She sprang up to kiss me, but I stopped her. I'm never going to have sex with you again, I stated. She turned red with anger. What did you say? I'm never going to sleep with you again, she screamed. Who do you think you are? I calmly pulled out my phone and showed her a video. Remember when your sisters received those tapes from the mechanic's wife? We got one too, but I deleted your copy so you'd never know. I kept mine, just in case I played the video. She was utterly shocked, her eyes wide, mouth agape, arms hanging limply at her sides. I told her I had met with the mechanic's wife and pleaded for reconciliation. I explained that I had allowed her to be with other women because I couldn't fulfill that need. For a brief moment, I saw a hint of compassion in my wife's eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by a conniving expression. That's in the past. What do you mean you won't have sex with me? She demanded. I shouted, we haven't had sex in over a year. Why would I start now? Kay looked confused and said, because of the money, dear. $20,000 a month is a lot. Don't be mad at me. I've been stressed, but that's behind us now. Please, let's focus on our future and having a new baby. No, I replied. You've treated me horribly since we got married. Her tone changed instantly. Listen, you worthless crap. We're going to have sex and make a baby, or I'll divorce you. Got it, she threatened, jabbing her finger at me. I just stared at her. And I'm not sharing the $4,000 a month either, she added, trying to sound tough. I relaxed and calmly said, fine by me. I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Can you give me the number of the attorney we just met? They seemed competent. Kay instantly calmed down, realizing I had the upper hand. She sat down and said more softly, it was just sex. I don't love her. I only love you. Let's not throw away all the years we've spent together. I'm just catching up on the new rules. I replied, the lying, the cheating, it was all a mistake. I love you and want things back the way they were. Let's go to the bedroom right now, she suggested eagerly. I knew you loved me, I said, feeling hopeful. No, I was lying, she retorted. Did you see how easily you believed me? Interesting to be on the other side, isn't it? If you really loved me, you'd try to make this work, she continued, her tone sharp. All right, you're right. I'll work harder on our relationship, I conceded, trying to ease the tension. I knew you loved me. Want to make it up to me in the bedroom, she asked, her voice softening. No, I'm never having sex with you again, I responded firmly. Kay looked shocked. But you just said you'd work harder on our relationship, she pointed out, confusion in her eyes. Yes, I did. I was lying, I admitted, feeling a strange sense of detachment. It gets easier the more you do it, Kay looked like she was about to cry. I'm sorry, I was just kidding. Do you really mean it, she asked, her voice trembling. No, not at all. I lied again, I said coldly. Wow. Lying really does make it easier to communicate with someone who trusts you, doesn't it? She observed with a bitter edge. I've been lying too. My parents are billionaires and will never have to worry about money again. She was too elated to notice my grave tone at the kitchen table. I had to urge her to stop texting. I confessed that I had quit my job a year ago and that things hadn't gone as planned. What? And you're just now telling me? She exclaimed. I explained that I had started my own software company, which was functioning but taking longer than expected. Well, that doesn't matter now, she replied dismissively. We have plenty of money and more coming. She attempted to kiss me, but I stopped her. I'm never going to have sex with you again, I declared. She turned red with anger. What did you say? I'm never going to sleep with you again, she yelled. Who do you think you are? I calmly pulled out my phone and showed her a video. Remember when your sisters got those tapes from the mechanic's wife? We got one too, but I deleted your copy so you'd never know. I kept mine, just in case I played the video. She was utterly shocked, her eyes wide, mouth agape, arms hanging limply. I told her I had met with the mechanic's wife and pleaded for reconciliation. I explained that I had allowed her to be with other women because I couldn't meet that need. For a brief moment, I saw a hint of compassion in my wife's eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by a cunning look. That's in the past. What do you mean you won't have sex with me? She demanded. I exclaimed, we haven't had sex in over a year. Why would I start now? Kay looked puzzled and said, because of the money, dear. $20,000 a month is a lot. Don't be upset. I've been stressed, but that's behind us now. Please, let's focus on our future and having a new baby." "No," I answered. "You've treated me terribly since we got married." Her tone changed instantly. "Listen, you useless fool, we're going to have sex and make a baby, or I'll divorce you." "Got it," she threatened, jabbing her finger at me. I just stared at her. "And I'm not sharing the $4,000 a month either," she added, trying to sound tough. I calmly said, "Fine by me. I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Can you give me the number of the attorney we just met? They seemed competent." Kay instantly calmed down, realizing I had the advantage. She sat down and said more softly, "It was just sex. I don't love her. I only love you. Let's not throw away all the years we've spent together. I'm just catching up on the new rules." I replied, "The lying, the cheating, it was all a mistake." "I love you and want things back the way they were. Let's go to the bedroom right now," she suggested eagerly. "I knew you loved me," I said, feeling hopeful. "No, I was lying," she retorted. "Did you see how easily you believed me? Interesting to be on the other side, isn't it? If you really loved me, you'd try to make this work," she continued, her tone sharp. "All right, you're right. I'll work harder on our relationship," I conceded, trying to ease the tension. "I knew you loved me." "Want to make it up to me in the bedroom?" she asked, her voice softening. "No, I'm never having sex with you again," I responded firmly. Kay looked shocked. "But you just said you'd work harder on our relationship," she pointed out, confusion in her eyes. "Yes, I did. I was lying," I admitted, feeling a strange sense of detachment. "It gets easier the more you do it." Kay looked like she was about to cry. "I'm sorry, I was just kidding." "Do you really mean it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No, not at all." "I lied again," I said coldly. "Wow, lying really does make it easier to communicate with someone who trusts you, doesn't it?" she observed with a bitter edge. "I've been lying too. My parents are billionaires and will never have to worry about money again." She mentioned Ron and Mark staying friends and becoming roommates after the divorce, but her expression hinted she suspected they were more than just friends. I added that Katie and Kathy would recover, though raising 2 children while working as a waitress and secretary would leave little time for romance, especially with 10 more years until the grandchildren were out of her house. I then casually mentioned how well my children were doing in school and suggested a pool party to inspire them. She agreed absent-mindedly, even though I knew the pool had been drained years ago to cut costs. I mentioned seeing her husband and his brother laughing and dining with her niece at a hotel restaurant. I showed her a photo I had edited, carefully removing feet from high heels under the table and raising a napkin on her husband's lap. After staring at it for nearly a minute, she quietly asked me to send it to her. Seething with anger as I glanced around, I noticed everyone was watching us. My usually loud and controlling mother-in-law was silent, a first in her life. "So I guess Kay told you about her little windfall," I said. "Yes, it's a wonderful opportunity for you two to get ahead. You should consider having another baby to secure your financial future, especially with your job situation," my mother-in-law responded, a cunning look in her eyes. "Well, Kay and I have had some marital issues. We'll see if we can work through them. She loves you, and it's a lot of money," she said, practically salivating at the thought. "I hope you'll encourage her to do whatever it takes to make our marriage work," I replied with a sneer. "Don't take too long, she has other options," she added. "Other options?" "Well, her sisters can't help. Infidelity is off the table for them. If Kay tries to divorce me, I'll sue for infidelity. I have proof. If she gets pregnant by someone else, a DNA test will show it. And I've already secured an attorney with all the evidence just in case something happens to me. Any lawsuit will cut off any money going to the plaintiff." My mother-in-law was speechless, her mouth hanging open in shock. Everyone at the party was staring, confused. I smiled at her, watching her struggle for words. Finally, she asked, "Can you get me another soda, please?" I took her glass and headed to the kitchen. From the sink, I watched her frantically talk to her husband and daughters, clearly upset. They all turned to look at me when they noticed her staring. She abruptly grabbed her husband's hand and led him out of the backyard through the side gate without saying another word. The 3 sisters then stormed into the house, berating me for upsetting their mother, repeatedly asking what I had said. From that day on, my mother-in-law never spoke directly to me again. Next, I turned my attention to Sasha, standing fiver, a divorcee whose husband had cheated on her. I checked court documents and her private investigator's findings. Originally, I hadn't considered Sasha in my plans, but after overhearing her express hatred for John and frustration with her situation, I realized her potential as a salesperson for my new company. Any woman who worked so hard to downplay such a great figure was someone I wanted to know better. I took photos of my boss John and Sasha walking arm in arm out of a downtown hotel, no kissing, just looking physically engaged. I didn't want anything too embarrassing getting out. I sent the pictures to John's wife. When John got home, his wife confronted him with the photos, reminding him of the rules never. In the house, no children, nothing public. John argued but eventually gave in. She wasn't going to be easy to crack, so I knew I'd have to up the stakes. That Monday, John fired Sasha. I was waiting outside as she left. "Hi, Sasha, what's wrong?" I asked, noticing her distressed expression. Visibly upset, she replied, "Nothing, I just got fired." I caught up to her. "Sorry to hear that. Can we talk?" "I have something you might want to hear," I offered, trying to sound sympathetic. Sasha stopped and stared at me. "What do you want?" she asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "I want to offer you a job," I said directly. Doing what she inquired, her curiosity piqued. "Sales at my software company." I maintained a professional tone as I explained, "I didn't know you owned a software company." "Wait, how did you know I was getting fired today?" she asked, as sharp as ever. I looked her in the eye. "Let's just say I've been keeping a close eye on my competition and didn't want to miss out on talent," I replied, revealing just enough to satisfy her curiosity. "How much?" she asked, getting straight to the point. "Same salary plus 20%, but you'll need to pay for your own apartment," I clarified, laying out the terms. "I saw your place listed in the company books and don't want any strings attached." "Deal. When do I start?" she agreed without hesitation. "You're already on the clock. I'll pick you up around the corner so JN doesn't see you. He's probably watching," I instructed, planning ahead. I walked away, and when I glanced back, she was flipping off John's office. I picked her up, and we headed to my house. On the way, I told her about my marriage. When I mentioned I hadn't had sex with my wife in 2 years, Sasha asked if I was joking. "Not since I found out she was cheating," I confessed, my voice heavy with the weight of the situation. I explained that I wouldn't be married much longer but needed Kay's help to get my company from John. I asked Sasha to keep it a secret. She smiled warmly. Those brown eyes were something else. When we arrived, Katie was there. Katie growled, "Who's this?" her tone filled with suspicion. "This is my new head of sales and marketing. She'll be working here for now." "Any problems?" Katie, I introduced Sasha, making my authority clear. "No problems," Katie replied, albeit reluctantly. Sasha seemed surprised by her new title, but I set her up at a desk next to mine. We spent the day going over my new software, which impressed her, especially the sales module. Over the past 2 years, using cheap labor and countless hours, I had rewritten all of John's programs. The new software was 10 times faster, smaller and more intuitive, with all the features John deemed too expensive. I gave Sasha 3 leads already using my sales software, and she quickly secured appointments for demos. Before Sasha left, I told her I'd be having a conversation with Kay in the kitchen that I wanted her to overhear. "I might need your help tonight," I hinted, my tone suggesting the seriousness of the situation. I left the office door open and called Kay into the kitchen. "We need to talk," I began, preparing for a difficult conversation. "Kay, I'm not going to have sex with you," I stated bluntly. "But we've been getting along so well," she protested, surprised by my sudden statement. "I need you and your sisters to sleep with someone," I said, cutting to the chase. "We're not hookers you can order around," she snapped, her voice rising in anger. "What if I promise to give you a divorce so you can remarry and have a legitimate baby?" I offered, trying to sweeten the deal. "You'll let me divorce without claiming infidelity?" she asked, her tone softening as she considered the proposal. "Yep," I confirmed. Kay smiled. "Who do we have to sleep with?" she asked, now more cooperative. "My boss, John." "I need you and your sisters to meet him in a hotel room tonight," I instructed, laying out my plan. "We can't do it tonight." "How about tomorrow?" she suggested, trying to negotiate. "No, it has to be tonight. He just dumped his girlfriend and will be looking for a rebound." I insisted, my voice firm. "Okay, but who'll watch the kids?" she asked, practical as ever. "Sasha and I will," I reassured her. Kay hesitated, about to ask something about Sasha, but I quickly pulled out a new purse from under the table. "I have a present for you," I said, trying to divert her attention. I pointed to some black buttons on the purse. These are cameras. Just make sure nothing blocks the view, I explained, my tone casual yet purposeful. Kay hesitated again. I'm not sure I'm comfortable being recorded, she admitted, her voice tinged with unease. I have weeks of videos of you with different guys, I stated bluntly. The tape of you with Ron and Mark is over 2 hours. I've got days of footage of you and Cheryl in our bed. Don't tell me you're shy now, I added, my voice firm, reminding her of the leverage I held. Kay, looking sad, asked, You have videos of me with Ron, Mark, and Cheryl. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The gravity of the situation dawned on her. Yep, and many more, I confirmed without hesitation. If I do this, will you destroy all the recordings, she asked, a glimmer of hope in her voice. Absolutely. Do this for me, and they're gone, I promised, sealing the deal. Kay smiled again, a look of reluctant acceptance on her face. Okay, let's do this, she agreed, her voice steadying as she committed to the plan. Kay called her sister and explained the details. Within 20 minutes, they arrived with their kids, all dressed in the most revealing outfits I'd ever seen them in. I didn't even know Kay owned something so skimpy, but when you offer free babysitting, drinks, a hotel suite, and a new sex partner, how else would they react? Once alone with the sisters on the porch, I showed them a picture of JN and said, I want you to wear him out. Their eager smiles told me they were up for it. After they left, Sasha and I got the kids settled in front of the TV and went to the office to monitor the situation. I started to explain more of my plan to Sasha, but she waved me off, saying, No need, from what I've seen and heard, John deserves whatever's coming. The sisters arrived at the lounge before JN, and I told Kay to leave her purse on the table so I could see through the cameras. JN eventually showed up, but with Nancy from work. Sasha cursed when she saw Nancy. She didn't waste any time, did she? Sasha snapped a picture of them at the bar and sent it to Nancy's boyfriend, Glenn, with a quick call implying trouble. Within minutes, Nancy was crying and running out, leaving John confused. But when Kay shouted across the bar, Forget her, John, he quickly joined the sisters at their table. Soon they were all headed to a hotel suite. In the room, the sisters quickly undressed, followed by JN, and they all got onto the bed where things escalated into a chaotic scene. After 25 minutes, I was pretty turned on and looked over at Sasha, who was also visibly flustered. I apologized and offered to stop watching, but Sasha suddenly ran out of the room. I thought I'd offended her, but she returned, locking the door behind her, and said, The kids are asleep, I need you. After 2 years without sex, I wasn't going to say no. We hooked up, then resumed watching the video. They might actually screw him to death, I remarked. Nice way to go. Usually John's a one-and-done guy. I saw Kay give him 2 Viagra. I wonder if he was dumb enough to take both. From what we saw, it looked like he did. Sasha and I later slipped into the guest room, showered together, and slept there. I wanted to enjoy her company as long as possible. We set the alarm to wake up before the kids to avoid any morning drama. In the morning, I fast-forwarded through that video. The sisters had kept John busy for over 3 hours, treating him like a human sex doll. His grin showed he didn't mind. Sasha wanted to leave, but I convinced her to stay for a few more hours, and she even made breakfast for the kids, who were amazed. Sasha left around 9 to change clothes. Kay and her sisters returned around 11, exhausted but smiling, while John looked worn out. I gave Kay more instructions and had her call JN for a repeat performance. He agreed but insisted on only taking 1 Viagra this time. They started drinking in the suite before John arrived. When he knocked, Kay handed him 2 Viagra, but he only took 1. After a few minutes, Ron and Mark showed up, greeted John, and joined the fun. I stopped watching at that point, preferring to wait until Sasha was back. She had client visits in the morning, so I planned to watch the tape later the next day with Sasha. The sisters were still at the hotel, and the kids were at school. I fast-forwarded through the tape. It looked like a bad European B-movie from the 70s, but I got what I needed. I rented an apartment downtown right across from John's office and paid a maid to keep it clean and stocked with food and water. I had the 3 sisters meet John there every day after work as often as he allowed. When John tried to skip a day for rest, I gave the sisters tips on where to hang out so he couldn't avoid them. To keep Katie and Kathy motivated, I promised them 10% of Kay's $220,000 monthly allowance once she was divorced and had the baby. Kay agreed, knowing they'd mooch off her otherwise, and that without them, there'd be no divorce. I eventually sent a highlight reel of John's escapades to his wife, obscuring everyone's faces except John's. Initially, I thought my plan might fail since John's wife was strikingly attractive and, interestingly, the daughter of a local mob boss. When John arrived home, his wife dragged him to the bedroom, stripped him, and hog-tied him on the bed. She played the video on their big TV while John begged for forgiveness. Without a word, she pulled out a large paddle and began spanking him. Finally, she told him, "I'm divorcing you. If you fight me, I'll release these videos to everyone you know." John, terrified, nodded in agreement. She added, "I'm leaving for a week on a yacht with my boyfriend. When I return tomorrow morning, I expect the locks to be changed and you to be gone forever. You get nothing from this house except the clothes on the floor and your car." As she walked out, John screamed through his gag, but she coldly replied, "Don't worry, a couple of men will escort you out. Have a nice life." The next morning, two large, silent men in suits untied John. When he moved toward the bathroom, they pulled out weapons, forcing him to dress quickly and leave. They waited until he drove away. John's wife filed for divorce that same day. Though upset, John was too busy with the sisters to dwell on it. He started staying at the apartment, which made it easier for them to control him. When they saw the bruises on his bottom, they laughed, and Katie even spanked him until he cried. John's wife froze all their accounts, and he soon struggled to pay his employees. Losing 25% of his business to a new competitor didn't help. I called 3 key people at John's company, hinting that payroll might not happen and offering them jobs. They didn't commit right away, but I left the door open. A few days later, John tried to access his garage but found it locked. Believing his wife was behind the leaked video, he was shocked when a tape of him with Ron and Mark spread throughout the industry, courtesy of an anonymous tip to a big-mouthed competitor. Within a week, the 3 key employees called back, accepting my offer. With John's reputation ruined, his company struggling financially, and his divorce looming, I managed to capture 90% of his clients within 60 days. His company shut down 2 days after his divorce was finalized. Once my company was thriving, I filed for an uncontested divorce and paid to expedite the process. I gave Kay the house, though she didn't know I had taken a second mortgage on it to fund my startup, half of our $88,000 joint account, her car, and nothing else. When she demanded half of my company, I told her it wasn't worth anything on paper yet and threatened to change the grounds to infidelity. She quickly signed the papers, clearly thinking, $220,000 a month, here I come. We were divorced 60 days later. The day after Kay married the mechanic, likely expecting to be rich and enjoy her new life, she spent the $8,000 and the $20,000 from her parents on the wedding. Soon after, she was pregnant. Rumor had it they were physically engaged even during the wedding. 3 months later, Kay and her mom visited the trust fund lawyers, expecting the $20,000 monthly payments to start. They were shocked to learn the trust funds had already been awarded to another candidate. The lawyers had to call the police due to the damage caused during the confrontation. The audio was frankly amusing. A few weeks later, Kay showed up at my house in a short red dress with no underwear, trying to reopen the divorce settlement. I reminded her the divorce was final and she was remarried. She offered to get back together and lifted her dress, asking if I missed her. I snapped a picture and asked if her new husband would appreciate seeing it. I then slammed the door. She banged on the door, screaming and crying, begging me not to send the photo. I told her I wouldn't, as long as she never came back. Her last words were, "I'm sorry I ruined our marriage. I wish you had been enough for me." It was clear she was living in a delusion. I eventually abandoned my surveillance hobby, destroying all the recordings. John disappeared after his company closed, with his last known location being in San Francisco's Castro district. His wife remarried a younger CEO and had 3 kids with him. My own kids graduated from high school and landed in dead-end jobs. They asked me for work, but I told them to call me if they ever became programmers. Ron and Mark leveraged their notoriety from the video into a different kind of stardom, eventually befriending a successful business owner looking to retire. Katie found herself in a better place, she and Cheryl, who divorced her husband, got married, and seemed genuinely happy. Kay's parents lost their last property and eventually got divorced, each going their separate ways. Kay herself stayed married for about a year before losing her house and being left by the mechanic. She now works as a waitress, lives in a trailer, and raises the mechanic's child. As for those who cheated with my wife and others, I didn't let them off the hook after Kay lost the trust fund money. I sent all the incriminating videos and voice recordings to their spouses and relatives using Kay's personal email. I sent over 300 emails and cloned her phone to ensure the messages were received. Kay sent me an angry text accusing me of breaking my promise to destroy the recordings. I replied, "Thanks for making honesty unnecessary in our marriage. It made getting what I wanted so much easier." She never responded. Regarding the divorces, I uncovered 13 cases linked to Kay, Kathy, and their mechanic lover. The mechanic, notorious for his big tool, caused 8 divorces by seducing other men's wives and sending derogatory texts about their husbands. Katie mostly messed around with single women, so she didn't directly cause any divorces. Kathy, on the other hand, was responsible for 10 divorces, none of which led to reconciliation because the wives lost all respect for their husbands after they stooped so low. My mother-in-law caused 1 divorce, and Kay was directly responsible for 13, with 2 reconciliations. These numbers only account for the direct divorces. Some of the men implicated other women, leading to additional divorces and a few arrests due to the resulting confrontations. Thankfully, no one died, though there were serious consequences for all involved. The mechanic, nicknamed Lefty after an incident with Katie and Cheryl, ended up with a permanently damaged tool bent 90 degrees to the left. He tried to press charges, but explaining how his injury occurred during sex made it difficult. The detectives handling the case had a hard time keeping a straight face. As for Lefty's ex-wife, I met with her to apologize for the blame she took during the sisters' divorces. She joked about the incident where she broke my mother-in-law's nose, calling it the highlight of her year. I asked if she was dating and introduced her to my recently divorced Sixer neighbor who used to play rugby. She was interested, and they hit it off after a barbecue at my place. She and her kids spent the night at his house, and they never left. They got married 6 months later with Sasha, 7 months pregnant, as a bridesmaid. As for me, my business is thriving. Before retiring, Sasha secured 3 major clients, ensuring the company's success. We got married quickly. I couldn't help it. I keep getting her pregnant. We're now expecting our 4th child. We moved near my parents to a beachfront property where it's warm 300 days a year. We live in a small house but spend most of our time on the large back deck with our 3 huge dogs. I taught the dogs to bark and growl at a picture of my ex-wife just in case she ever shows up looking for money. Unfortunately, one of the local vet assistants looks like my ex, so she has to hide when my dogs are around. Before we married, I showed Sasha all the details of my hobby. She took it as a warning but laughed and told me she had nothing to worry about. A perfect response. And yes, as you might have guessed, I was the executor of the trust in Kay's uncle's name. I closed the trust to reclaim my money and start my new life.